So today I want to build a complex voice patch in the polygrid, very much inspired by Eurorack complex oscillators and the Buchla music easel, and it will sound like this. I will quickly mention that I added the ideas from this video to the PDF of tips and tricks I keep on updating, so if you are interested, it's available on my Patreon, together with the project file from this video and from other videos on this channel. So eventually we will have two oscillators that will modulate each other in various ways, but let's start with one. We will use the sine oscillator. Right, already here we have two ways of shaping the sound. We have skew and we have fold, but that's not enough, so we will use also the hard clip module, this one here, and also the wave folder. And let's already listen to this and look at it also on the scope. Before I connect this to the output, I will just attenuate this a bit, just so it's not too loud. Let's say something about this. And I will use also the scope, right, set this to pitch. Right, so again we have skew, we have fold, but now I can turn this also into something more square-like with the hard clipper. Right, and again with the other parameters we have even more control, and we have a different type of wave folding. Right, you can see it's folding the wave in different ways. Right, so we have lots of control and ways to change the timbre, to change the sound itself. Now another thing I would like to add is a low pass gate. Now in general a low pass gate will not only control the amplitude of a signal but also its timbre. So softer hits will be also darker and louder hits will be also brighter. So for this we can use a combination of a VCA and the low pass filter. So for the VCA I will use the AM/RM module, this one here. Let's put it here and call this also VCA. AM stands for amplitude modulation, which is exactly what we need, and RM stands for ring modulation, which is also a type of amplitude modulation. So this module will act as a VCA, and then after the VCA we will use a low pass filter, and you can experiment with different filters. I will use the simple low pass module here, right after the VCA. Now I will close the VCA all the way. This will be turning it all the way to the right. And I will also close the filter, in this case, all the way to the left. So now there is no sound going through, right? And another aspect of a low pass gate is the fact that it's very percussive. So for this I will use the attack decay or the AD envelope. Right, it will once control the VCA. From the output there is a modulation input here, and once it will also control the filter with this modulator. Right, and for now, for triggering this, we can just use the triggers module. I will set this to 16 because I would like to have a resolution of 16th notes. Right, and let's play with this a bit. Right, we already have sound, maybe make this a bit more percussive. Right, something like this. So again, we have a combination of a VCA and a low pass filter acting as our low pass gate. Right. And we can start shaping our sound. So this is the first voice, but again we want to have two and cross modulate them. So I will duplicate the oscillator part, right, with the wave shapers. Now I will mix them before the VCA, right? So I will use the mixer before the VCA, and then we have the two voices. And there are a few things I would like to do. So first of all, I would like to have ring modulation where the second oscillator modulates the first oscillator. So we need again the AM/RM module, right? This will go from the first oscillator, take it again all the way to the left. Maybe we can name this also ring mod, right? Something like this. So we know it's ring modulation. And now use the second oscillator to modulate this after the wave shapers and everything. Right, so now if I solo the first, this is now just this oscillator, the first one, maybe bring it back to normal, and now I can start adding ring modulation. Right, so now we don't hear the actual oscillator, but we are ring modulating the first oscillator, and the second oscillator will very much affect the sound, and also the first oscillator. So we have another way of shaping the sound. This is now both of them together. Now another thing I would like to add is FM or frequency modulation. Also here the second oscillator will modulate the first one again after the wave shapers. This is the whole fun about this setup. Now if we add modulation just like this, it can get pretty wild pitch-wise. Right, which can also be fun, but what we can do, we can sort of sync the first oscillator to the second one. So in this case, we have here the trigger or the re-trigger input. We can use directly the oscillator output. Right, and now we have timbre changes, but the pitch is more or less stable. Without and with. And again, both of them can be interesting. So we can add a sort of a toggle module, right? Just so we can toggle this in and out with the toggle in module. Right, so now it's going through and now not. Right, so you can turn this sync on and off. Now I would also like to add phase modulation, in this case cross-modulate the oscillators. So oscillator 2 can go directly to oscillator 1, to the phase input, right? And again, after the wave shapers. And oscillator 1 will modulate oscillator 2, but for this, since we are patching feedback, we need the long delay module, right? If I just try to connect this like this, nothing will happen because we have a sort of a feedback loop between the two oscillators. So we need a long delay module, set it to the shortest delay, and now the first oscillator can go to the long delay, and from there to the phase input, right? And now we can have cross modulation of phase. Gets all sorts of noise. You can also maybe a bit detune them. Stereo, maybe, why not? Oh. Right, so we have ring modulation, we have frequency modulation, we have phase modulation. I would like to add some more control over the low pass gate, so it's possible to have it also open. For this, we will use the value module, right, this one here, maybe call this low pass gate, so LPG. And to modulate things, we need also the modulator out under the inputs and outputs, right? So we can send these to different modulation destinations. So this will control once the VCA all the way to the left in this case, and once the filter all the way to the right. And now I can open this, maybe take this a bit lower. Oh man. Right, now I can open this low pass gate. And now let's add another fun aspect, and that's a 5-step Buchla style sequencer. So we will use for this the gates device, let's put this here, and also the steps device, maybe take this all the way down and close all the gates. I will set both again to 5 steps, just like on the easel. And now since we want to run this as a polymeter, we will need also the phase counter module, set this also to 5 steps. Right, so this will scan through the sequences 1 and 2 with 5 steps. We don't need any more, let me zoom in a bit, we don't need any more the pre-chords because we are using an external signal. And now to trigger the counter, we can use already the triggers module we have here. Right, this will trigger the counter, and now all we need is a way to reset everything. So again, under inputs, outputs, we have transport playing. This will trigger the counter or will reset it whenever we hit play, right? And now the gates module will gate or trigger, in this case, the envelope. Again, we don't want gates, so I can choose trigger. And the steps module we will use for pitch, but it will not be in scale or anything. So once it can go directly to oscillator 2, again, no need for the pre-chord, and we can open this attenuator or attenuverter in this case all the way. And also once we can mix it with the pitch modulation, with the frequency modulation here, right? So we need a mixer. The first input will be the modulation, right? So we can close it all the way. Open the attenuverter all the way. Again, also here, no need for the pre-chord. So now with this control here, we can add frequency modulation. And the second channel will be the sequencer. Right, so now we can also sequence this with a 5-step sequence. Right, and it's not following pitch or anything. We are going hardcore today. Right, we can change everything. Pitch, ring mode, amplitude modulation. Right, so there's a lot to play with here. I will quickly arrange things. And this is the final result with all the different macro controls for easy access. I also have some delay and reverb added. Right, so these are the oscillators. You can see oscillator 1, oscillator 2, the low pass gate, and here I have macro control. So I have the sequence. Let me play this already. Right, I have the sequence, the gate sequence, and the sort of pitch, and then I have all the macro controls for oscillator 1. I can change the octave, unit. On purpose, I didn't name this fold and skew and so, just so it's more for exploration and experimentation. Right, we have phase modulation. I can turn on sync for oscillator 1. You can have the ring mode. Then I have everything for oscillator 2 again. Change the octaves. Oh man. Phase modulation, all the different timbre controls, and again I have here the low pass gate. Right, so I'm going to add a few more voices to this for context. I hope you enjoy this video. Come join us on Patreon and Discord. Cheers!